Hey guys, remember that time I watched 2 episodes of Trigun Stampede and then announced, this isn't a remake of the older anime, it's its own entity! And then proceeded to compare the 2 anime for the rest of that video? Yeah, me too. What's up, dandelions? My name is LuuluSoul, and I've been making art and watching anime for over 2 decades now, and I'm here to share my opinions on anime and my art with all of you. So yeah, I'm here to admit it. I was wrong about almost everything I said in my previous Trigun video. This new anime doesn't have the heart of the original show. This new Vash is nothing like his OG anime counterpart. Why? Well, for one thing, I'm not the same 11-year-old girl I was when I first watched Trigun. But also because, like I've already stated so many times, it isn't the same show, and these aren't the same characters. Even so, I found myself constantly going back and comparing the 2 anime. Even as I was watching beyond the first 2 episodes into episode 3 and beyond, I just kept finding myself thinking that I was watching the older show. Nothing felt right. This anime was way darker. Everybody was getting tortured, and who was this Vash? The Vash I know was running around laughing and saving everybody. He was the big hero. He did these amazing, incredible feats impossible to do for most humans, and he was saving entire towns. He was doing amazing things, and nobody was dying. That was the whole thing. That was what originally made Meryl question whether or not he actually was the humanoid typhoon. And this Vash was so green, so young, so weak. He could barely save himself. He couldn't save himself most of the time, much less anybody else. And the very few times he did promise that he was going to protect somebody, he failed miserably. And what was this opening song? This isn't the comedic wild western anime that I had fallen in love with. Where were the jokes? Where were the quirky scenes? Where was the ketchup bottle? I just can't seem to separate the 2 anime in my head, so I'm gonna stop trying to. Instead, I want to talk about the differences between Vash from Stampede and Vash from Trigun. So because of that, just like in my last video, whenever I use Trigun, I'm referring to the older 90s anime. And whenever I say Stampede, I'm going to be referring to the newer anime. Cool. Now, Trigun comes across as a lighthearted story, but for jaded adults. I know that Vash himself is supposed to be somewhere like over 100 years old, and I don't remember how he's supposed to appear to be, but based off of his character art and his personality, he feels like he's somewhere in his mid-20s. He carries the world on his shoulders, but he deals with that through laughter, jokes, and overall silly trolling. For example, when a group of gang members come and try to shoot him, he not only manages to dodge every bullet, but he also has time to break a ketchup bottle on the floor and cover himself in it and make it appear as though he has been shot dead. Because he can do that. Because he's Vash. And when he's not doing that, he's making goofy puns, trying to con donuts out of people. He's being a little perverted, which I didn't like too much, but it kind of fit in with his whole, hey, I'm basically a himbo personality type. And then, when the slower beats of the show pop up, we get to see the seriousness and pain underneath all of that hilarious camouflage. We see the man who will protect anyone who reaches their hands out to him. He does everything in his power to keep anyone around him from dying out of a sense of duty and respect to the woman who raised him. She hated killing. Vash loved her. Therefore, Vash hates killing because that would make her memory sad. Vash himself doesn't really seem to care all that much outside of his love for Rem. For example, there's a ruthlessness about him. Killing is a straight up no-go, but he has 0 issues stripping an entire gang of their weapons, money, and clothing, and then kicking them out into a deserted landscape. What will kill them first? Thirst? Hunger? The sun? Vash doesn't care. Gun shows are just fine. Let the humans shoot each other, as long as the wound isn't fatal. He will break limbs while smiling and is completely confident in his ability to overpower just about anyone who gets in his way. And Trigun Vash has already promised his protection to people and failed over and over again. He's seen humanity devolve into the lowest cesspit it can go, and then watched as individuals crawled back up out of that pit to bring new life to themselves and those around them. He's lived among them, been a part for them, and to some extent appears to feel human himself. He eats, drinks, sleeps, laughs, and fights right alongside the humans that, well, he lives with. He's a part of humanity, while also being as much of an enigmatic mystery for us, the audience, as he is for the companions that follow him around. And most of this stuff has already happened when the Trigun anime has begun. Everything about Vash screams, things will get bad, but life continues on, and good things grow up out of that bad. Even in the later part of the series, when he's been beaten and just wants to fade away into a simple life, we still see him putting himself into harm's way to protect people. It doesn't take much to convince Vash to get back up again. The Trigun anime ends with a feeling of hope. It just radiates an overall feeling, that emotion, that knowledge that it's gonna be okay, especially if Vash is around. Now, Stampede's Vash, however, is an entirely different character. He hasn't had any of the experiences that the older Vash had in the beginning of the show, and again, with his character art and his personality traits and how he interacts with people, he comes across more like an awkward teenager than a fully fledged adult. He can't protect anyone, and when he tries, people usually end up in more danger because of it. Pain in general is something he hates, not out of any sense of duty, but because that's just who he is as a character. This is a guy that would very likely stop talking to you for a week if you stepped on a cockroach. This Vash, he feels much, much younger. He just hasn't had the chance to fail very much yet, and definitely doesn't have the same confidence in himself and his skills. Every emotion felt lives rent-free on the sleeves of an arguably way cooler red coat. Because what we're experiencing in Stampede is the character building that Vash has in the beginning of Trigun. Stampede, in contrast, feels more poetic and haunting. There is no sense that everything is going to be alright in the end. There is no promise of redemption. In each episode, we're watching Vash live through all of that character building and trauma. He doesn't fully understand how to interact with humans yet. He's trying to live among them, but he feels very, very apart from them. It's that emotion that I think a lot of us as teenagers have experienced and felt, of being on the outside looking in, even if you're in the middle of a crowd. The kids see him more as one of their own and less like that really cool adult that you can pretend to beat up. There's less comedy in this show, but in this more serious, softer Vash is that feeling of connection. We as the audience are more likely to worry about him because he genuinely worries about others. When he cries, I want to reach out and I want to pat him on the shoulder and I want to tell him that everything will be alright. Even though I know it might not. He hasn't learned yet. Not how to stand up for himself, or to fully protect others, or even how to react. But his relationship with knives is also more raw because of that. We get to see way more of them as children, and honestly more of Knives' mentality and reasoning. Some viewers likely even sympathize with him over Vash in this version of the show. And in the end, when the two have their ultimate fight, it feels like two siblings fighting each other. Stampede trades the comedy of Trigun for a steampunk dystopian dreamscape where each day could be anyone's last and everyone is struggling to survive. Yeah, you still hope and pray things will end up okay, but you also know they might not. Even though this Vash does feel younger and more naive, the show, it feels more mature and raw. In the end, at least as far as season 1 goes, no one truly wins. The lingering emotions are melancholy as opposed to hopeful. Season 2 has been announced. We don't know when it comes out yet. I'm kind of hoping that it lands in July. If not this July, then I'd even be willing to wait until next July, specifically so that I can be like, season 2 comes out in July. Vash and Knives destroyed July. Like, the puns are there. I'm a nerd. You guys know that though. That's what you're here for. You're here for the fact that I'm a nerd. Anyway, that's kind of all I have to say for now regarding Vash and Vash. They're kind of like twins in a show about twins. I don't know. Anyway, thank you guys for listening to my rambling. I would love to know what you think though about the 2 different versions of the show. If you have seen Stampede first and then went back to watch Trigun, I really want to know your thoughts because, like, how is that for an experience? Did you like it at all? Like, if you loved both, let me know. If you love one over the other, let me know. I have learned to love both of these anime in their own right. I think the Trigun will always have that special place in my heart, and I definitely think that I prefer the overall message of hope that lands in it. But I will say that Stampede feels like it has an overall more solid story. They are both wonderful for their own very special reasons. I would love to hear your thoughts. This has been an incredibly overwhelmed LuuluSoul signing off. Okay, thanks, bye.